Hello and good morning, and welcome to our webinar today all about aligning employee engagement and ESG and how you can build a resilient workforce for sustainability. My name is Serena Huthatua. I'm the Business Features Editor here at HR Grapevine, and I have the pleasure of being joined by Phil Cohen, Customer Success Manager at Winning Temp, who today is going to give us essential insights into the critical connection between employee engagement and building a resilient, purpose-driven organization. He's going to tell us how engaged employees contribute to sustainability, foster loyalty, and drive long-term success. He's going to explain practical strategies tailored to your role, empowering you to nurture a culture of engagement and sustainability within your organization, and deliver practical insights on measuring the impact of employee engagement initiatives and future-proofing your workforce against evolving challenges. So I'm going to hand over to him in just a second, but before I do, there's a few little housekeeping bits to go over. Firstly, a poll should now be live on your screen. The question we're asking is, to what extent does your HR strategy feed into your company's sustainability strategy? So do get voting and tell us what you think. We'll be revealing the poll's results in a moment. Secondly, we'll have a chance to answer some of your burning questions at the end in a Q&A. So get any questions you have over to us in the QA function on the side of your screen as soon as you can. And without further ado, I'll hand over to Phil to get us started. Hi, Phil.
Hi, thank you very much, Serena. Thanks to you and to Lauren and all the team at HR Grapevine. It's great to be collaborating with you all once again. Thanks ever so much to Eric and our marketing team here at Winning Temp for all the hard work you've put into making today happen. And thanks to you for your time today. Thanks for taking time out of your day. I hope you find it helpful and insightful. Before we get into it, let me just introduce myself. My name is Phil Cohen. I'm a customer success manager here at Winning Temp. I've been with the company nearly 2 years now. Prior to that, I've been working in talent technology, sort of recruitment tech, ATS, that sort of thing. So you may hear a little bit of that sort of creeping into some of the conversations that we have today. But before we get into today's topic, I just wanted to share with you a bit about what it is that we do at Winning Temp. Our business idea and vision is to forever change how people succeed together. When employees find their job meaningful, when they receive feedback on how they're doing, when they have the possibility to contribute and continue and to develop and learn, they will also perform better and help the company reach its desired results. Winning Temp is not only the name of our company, it is also the name of our product. Winning Temp stands for Winning Temperature and is an employee engagement platform, software solution, where our customers can collect feedback from their employees on a weekly basis regarding how they perceive leadership, involvement, stress, teamwork, etc. Winning Temp uses AI to send out relevant questions linked to each employee's work situation. So if, for example, you have one employee experiencing a stressful period of work, when answering questions regarding the work situation one week, the system will continue to ask follow-up questions related to stress over a period of time, to see if it was just a one-time situation where the stress levels were high, or if we have a negative trend and need to prioritize activities to improve the situation. If you're curious to learn more about our product, you're welcome to stay on for an extra couple of minutes at the end, where we'll show a short video about how Winning Temp works. Okay, Serena, we've got the poll. Could you share with us what the results are from the question you've asked?
So the poll results have come in, and this is to the question, to what extent does your HR strategy feed into your company's sustainability strategy? And the results have come in, and 40% say our HR strategy is loosely aligned with our sustainability strategy, whereas 25% say our HR strategy is aligned with our sustainability strategy. 25% again say we have no sustainability strategy, whilst 10% say our HR strategy does not impact our sustainability strategy, and 5% say the HR strategy drives our sustainability strategy.
Okay, Interesting. So there is a small number of you that say that there is a clear link. There are some of you that are saying that you can see a connection between sustainability and employee engagement. But I'm sensing that the link is sort of there, but in some cases a little bit vague. So that's interesting to hear, and we'll try and keep that in mind when we with the content that we put across today. Thank you very much, Serena. Thanks. So there we go. So today we're going, as I say, we're going to talk about employee engagement and sustainability, two subjects which don't always go together naturally, don't always seem to go together naturally, but I want to show today, as Serena was saying earlier, not only do they link quite closely, but actually that employee engagement drives sustainability. But before I do, I want to tell a little story about me driving home one day on a cold, wet, typically British autumn Sunday afternoon after a football match with the kids. And unlike as you can see in the picture, it was absolutely chucking down with rain, bucketing down with rain. And as I'm driving home, I see on the pavement a jogger. And as I get closer, I see that the person jogging is actually somebody I know, a friend of mine who lives locally. And the thought occurred to me to sort of pull over and offer him a lift home. Now, obviously, I didn't do that, polite wave and drove past, and he was fine with that. The reason I didn't pull over was because he wasn't out jogging as a way of getting home. His purpose in jogging was the exercise. As it turns out, he's a serial marathon runner. He was out doing his Sunday 10K that he does several times in a weekend. It wasn't about getting home for him. He had a broader purpose. So for him, the fact that it was raining, the fact that he was probably in pain or whatever it was, wasn't the object of the exercise. The purpose pushed him forwards to go through that and to get to his personal best or whatever it was that he was hoping to achieve. It was about the fitness. It was about the preparation for his next run. Had he been walking home, perhaps with some shopping, maybe the situation would have been a little bit different. But in this case, because he had a purpose, he was able to overcome all of that negativity. So I want to just park that for a moment, leave that, and we'll come back to that a little bit later on in our discussion. So as I say, we're going to talk about engagement and sustainability. We'll start with engagement. I'm not going to spend too long talking about engagement. It's something that we've talked about a lot in our webinars. There's bucket loads of it on our website. That's basically what we do. So please feel free to visit winningtemp.com to have a look at more details about employee engagement. But basically, employee engagement defines the relationship a worker has, or we all have, I guess, with their job, with their manager and their team, and with the company as a whole, their employer, the brand, if you like. And we can look at it at different levels. We can look at it on a purely transactional level. We can look at it at a more like an emotional level, if you like. But basically, we're asking, would this person go above and beyond what's expected of them for the sake of their job, for the sake of their team, or whatever it is? And the level to which that's the strength of that relationship defines the level of engagement. And I'm sure you're aware there's a whole load of research out there showing that a strong sense of engagement amongst the workforce leads to a load of other business success factors such as productivity, profitability, even customer loyalty and engagement. And perhaps that's a topic for another day. But even strong relationships, if they're feeling engaged and motivated in their work, that's going to rub off onto customers and clients as well. But of course, having a strong sense of connection with your work is also going to mean that you're going to be less likely to want to leave. And so we see a low level of turnover amongst workers that are highly engaged. I can speak anecdotally from some of my clients. Well, looking about, I've got cases of 18-20% reduction in staff turnover using a tool like Winning Temp to track and mitigate the risks around their employee engagement. Research that we've done shows that it can be anything up to 20 to 30% reduction in staff turnover. But you certainly get reductions in other things like stress. We see about 26% reduction in stress because, again, the employee is sort of on the right way of working. They're engaged in what they work. They're invested in what they're doing. The model we use at Winning Temp, and apologies for those of my clients that have joined today, you're going to see, you've seen this slide numerous times. It's basically a data-driven model of management, of engagement, or whatever it is that you want to call it. And it's something that we use at Winning Temp an awful lot. So if we start at the top of the circle, start at 12 o'clock, you start by gathering data, listening to the feedback, analyzing that feedback. And broadly speaking, that feedback will fall into two categories: things that are having a positive impact on the engagement, so that's we flag as green, and feedback that's having a negative impact on the engagement. And you need to look at that in the whole. You need to look at it all together. You need to look at the positive stuff, the good feedback, as well as the red stuff, because the green stuff is what's driving your engagement, and you want to make sure that that continues. Don't let go of that. Understand it. Don't get complacent about it. Make sure it's continuing. Make sure it carries on. It could be some feedback that you want to share with other managers, other people within the business, and perhaps even I've got clients that share that sort of feedback on their social media as well to the outside world, as part of their employer branding, as part of their recruitment marketing. So you've got all of your feedback, you've got your data in, you've got from the teams. You're then able to use that to work with them to put together an action plan as to what initiatives, what actions do they want to take off the back of that feedback. And then you put those actions into place. So that brings you back up to the top of the circle again. But the story doesn't stop there, because you want to understand what impact those actions are having on your engagement. Are they having the effect you wanted them to? Could be that they're having a better effect than we expected. Could be that they need to be edited. Maybe there's other things that have come up that have impacted their effectiveness. So we need to change them a little bit, or add in more. So again, we're adjusting and updating those actions. And again, we're back up to the top of the circle. So that creates a culture of, or what I call, listening leaders, where your leaders, your managers are much closer to their teams, because they're in a constant loop of listening and acting. And by creating this virtuous feedback loop, by creating these virtuous circles of constantly learning, constantly adjusting to changes in employee engagement, you'll create a much more resilient team. For the people in the team, this means that they feel, or what one of my clients describes as being a more inclusive environment. That's because in Winning Temp, we happen to we anonymize the feedback, so therefore everybody in the team is given an equal voice, even those people that don't perhaps feel comfortable putting their hands up at meetings and coming forwards. They feel by tapping in, entering their feedback on an app, they're much more able to be more candid, more open with their feedback. But it also means that you're much more connected to the rest of your team and to your manager as well. From a manager's point of view, as the title suggests, you're giving data, you're giving decisions, you're able to make decisions that are based on data and feedback from the teams, rather than just guesswork. So it means that the things that you're making, you're able to justify those decisions to senior management. So if they come back saying, we want more training, we want some changes in whatever, you're able to show the managers, hey, look, it's not just me guessing as a manager. This is what the teams are actually telling us. But a key to making this work is to set the expectations right. So to get a rhythm of flowing around the circle in a way that suits the manager and the teams, to not make it too quick, but not make it too slow, and to clearly communicate those expectations out to the team. So if, for example, you're having a team meeting once a month, let's say, so you have it at the end of the month, let's say, you've got all of the data in from the team through that month, and then you're able to discuss it with them at the end of the month, or it could be at the end of 2 months or at the end of the quarter. What that means is that if I put in data at the beginning of the month, I know that if I haven't heard back for the next 2 or 3 weeks, well, that's fine, because we've got a team meeting at the end of the month where I'll be able to do that. If I haven't got that expectation set, if I haven't had that communicated properly, I'm going to put data in at the beginning, and if I haven't earned back in 2 or 3 weeks, I don't know where it's gone, and I start to lose interest. The key to this model is keeping the left-hand side of the circle driving the right-hand side of the circle. If you're acknowledging and at least recognizing the feedback, even if there's some of it that you can't act on, at least by showing that, people will feel more inclined to give you their feedback. with clients that I work with, where the problems most often occur is with that. If that dries up, then the whole circle will grind to a halt, and you stop getting a sense. The whole thing stops basically. So it's important to get a good rhythm. It's important to get the expectations communicated correctly. This model here is something you may be familiar with. It was put out by Josh Berzin. You can see the link to the research there. Feel free to download it and have a look at it yourselves. He basically proposes an evolution, a development of employee engagement that starts on the left-hand side. Version 1 is, I'm sure you're all familiar with, the annual sort of employee engagement survey. It goes out once a year, maybe twice a year. Loads and loads of questions. It takes weeks to get the data in, and then some poor soul in HR has to sort of put it all up onto a spreadsheet, and then a few weeks later it ends up on PowerPoints, and it ends up in front of the board. All of that takes an awful long time. So by the time it gets on that PowerPoint slide, it's almost out of date. But what it does mean is that you're able to have a more strategic overview of the business. If you want to get more granular data, more detailed data, more sort of real-time data, then we move to level 2.0, where you're sending out much shorter but more frequent surveys, pulse surveys. And the analogy I give is I've got a Fitbit watch. I don't know if you have smartwatches. It's the difference between going to see your doctor maybe once a year or having an annual checkup versus having a Fitbit watch. You're getting that data in real time. So although it's not giving you sort of perhaps the more strategic, broader brushstrokes, it is making you much more responsive to fluctuations in your engagement. So because the data is in real time. But if we move over to level 3, at level 3, we're saying, okay, well, we've got loads of data. We're getting that data in. What is it that we need to do about it? What actions can we take? Now, as I've said in the previous slide, in an ideal world, you as managers will be working with your teams to get those actions together, which is absolutely fine, which is what we would recommend. But it doesn't always work like that. And then sometimes it's helpful to have a solution that actually generates some actions for you, some suggestions for you that can help mitigate and address the feedback that you're getting. At Winning Temp, without being too pushy, we're now using AI to generate suggestions based on the data that we've got from our clients around the world, to be able to give suggestions that are tailored to the particular manager to address the feedback, the data coming in from their teams. But as you can see, the evolution is going from sort of senior leaders to HR and then on to the manager. In level 4, we take that a step further and divest it down to the actual employee themselves. So they're able to take responsibility for their own engagement. The way they do that is perhaps through AI. An example could be, I don't know, let's say you put into the system that you're experiencing a bit of stress at the moment. So the chatbot or whatever it is feeds into your HRIS and sees, oh, you've got some, you haven't taken all your holiday allowance. Would you like to, which suggests you take a day off? I've seen that you've not. There's the option to take to make an application for flexible working. Maybe that's something would work. Would you consider reducing your hours? It comes up because it's feeding into a broader ecosystem. It's able to make informed suggestions based on the feedback that you're giving. The key to this is that we're moving from more of a snapshot kind of retrospective view of HR data and engagement data to being much more strategic and forward thinking in your planning and your HR strategy. So you're able to actually spot problems before they become problems, because you can see that employee, for example, we put up that he's feeling a bit of stress. Well, actually, what's that going to look like in 6 months' time? Is that employee still going to be with us? Are they going to burn out? So you're able to spot these things and see the trends as they before they become problematic. So that's, as I say, engagement. I want to park that for now. Please do feel free to have a check on our website if you'd like to find out more. And I'm sure HR Grapevine as well has plenty about employee engagement on their website too. So let's talk about sustainability, the other half of the question, the other half of the equation. Previously, when we talked about sustainability, way back when, sustainability was about things that the company would do. So they would, I don't know, give employees a day off a month to go and help out, to volunteer in a local charity or whatever it is. But what we're moving towards with sustainability is away from what the company does to being what the company is. And a lovely quote that I've seen is, it's more about not how you spend your money, but how you make your money. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with making money from sustainability initiatives. For example, Marks and Spencer's, as you may know, their Plan A, which is part of their sustainability initiative. In the first 5 years of their Plan A, they've made £185 million off the back of that. So not only is it helping them be a more sustainable company, but it's actually making them money. They're actually leveraging it to bring in revenue, be that through cost savings or revenue. So it's absolutely nothing wrong with it being part of your commercial strategy, on your HR strategy as well. In fact, what we found was over the last 4 or 5 years was investors are starting to look at sustainability. As one client put it to me, we want to know that the companies that we're investing in are still going to be around in 5-10 years time, not just that they're profitable, that they're making money. So we've got this framework called ESG, which is being used more and more to assess and to measure the sustainability of a business. I'm sure it's something you've come across before based on the poll results that you've given me. If we start with the E, environmental, we're basically asking, what is it that the company, what is the company's impact on the environment, and what is its dependence on finite resources? Okay, I'm going to skip over the S for a moment. We're going to come back to it on the next slide. But if we look at the G is basically governance. Do you have the processes and infrastructure in place to monitor and mitigate risks? Do you have that framework in place to almost like the scaffolding, if you like? S in the middle is the social, or what I like to call the stakeholder part of the equation, and it's making sure that the relationships, making sure that the stakeholders, the relationship with the stakeholders is a sustainable one. You can see here a very crude value chain, if you like, for a business to sort of give it some context. What we can do is look through the value chain to see, is it sustainable? If I start with suppliers, and forgive me, I'm going to throw out a whole load of data at you. If you want any of the sources, please do get in touch. We can get those to you if you like. But research from McKinsey has shown that strong ESG credentials drive down costs by about 5 to 10%. Okay, so like I said with the Marks and Spencer's example, you can see how having a good supply chain, have a sustainable supply chain, will help your sustainability as a business. I'm sure we've all seen the horror stories that come out of the fashion trade with their, well, for lack of a better word, low sustainability of their supply chain. In some cases, downright unethical. But nonetheless, having a supply chain that is weak on its sustainability will impact your commercial success. And the same goes for customers as well. At the other side, if you're pushing into a market that has a limited shelf life, then you're going to find as a business that that makes it non-sustainable and less likely to attract investment. And in terms of investors, and NASDAQ found that investments into companies with strong ESG strategies grew by 42% in the last 2 years. There was a BCG, Boston Consulting Group study put out, which looked into this. I'm grateful to our HR director here at Winning Temp for pointing this out to me. She's written an article, Sarah Holmberg has written an article on our website about the link between engagement and sustainability. She did it for Earth Day a couple of weeks ago. And in this BCG study, they showed that top performers on ESG had valuations that were 3 to 19% higher than those with median ESG scores. And 80% of investors believe that companies should prioritize ESG issues in their business strategies. So you can see that for suppliers, for investors, for customers, those two parts of the value chain are very important in terms of ESG. But I know what you're thinking. We're HR. We're looking at the middle chunk. We want to look at employees. So that leads us to the $6 million question. How sustainable is a workforce, and can we measure the sustainability of a workforce? Well, McKinsey ranked sustainability as the 4th most quoted push factor and the 5th most important pull factor for given for people wanting to switch jobs. So if you think about terms of Hertzberg, hygiene factors, motivating factors, and so on, you can think of it in terms of the 4th and the 5th most important factors for that. Research by EY Lane 4, which is set up by Ernst & Young, by EY, showed that 37% of respondents would take a 20% pay cut to work somewhere that had a more positive impact on society and or the environment. 37% take a pay cut. Deloitte's global millennial study hiked that up to 70% for Gen Zs. I never get this right. It's Gen Zs or Gen Zs, and 66% for millennials. Okay, so a significant number of candidates, talent, is looking for this in their work and will switch jobs for it. Willis Towers Watson, another study showed that number to be 58%. 58% of candidates consider a company's social and environmental commitments when deciding where to work. So when we're judging the success of a workforce, I'm not saying we're moving away from things like productivity, but it's kind of looking at it alongside their sustainability, because there's no point having a workforce that is highly productive, that is doing the numbers and is working all hours that God sends just to get the orders out the door and to get the sales in, if that model is non-sustainable. So we want to have it as a sustainable, sure and steady kind of workforce. But what we're finding is that the same metrics that we use to measure the engagement of a worker, of a team, are also the same metrics that we can use to measure their sustainability as well, their long-term sustainability as well. And what I want to show next is that some of the metrics we use here at Winning Temp to measure engagement have clear links, and not just links, but are drivers for sustainability. And I'm sure there's other products out there and they use all sorts of different other metrics, other ways of measuring sustainability. But let's just look at two of the 9 that we measure here at Winning Temp. Start with meaningfulness and purpose. Having a strong sense of purpose makes employees much more engaged. We found that having a strong sense of purpose reduces absence and gives better quality performance as well. Back to that BCG study, Gen Z is the first generation to prioritize purpose over salary. They read mission statements and values documents to select where they want to work and what they want their employers' values, and they want their employers' values to match their values. In other words, they're looking at your EVP, they're looking at your employer value proposition and comparing it with their own and making sure that the two match. And if they don't, they will take that into consideration when considering whether to accept an offer of employment. That was Gen Z. For millennials, the number there's 64% of millennials consider a company's social and environmental commitments when deciding where to work. Okay, so having a strong sense of purpose is increasingly important, not just in retaining talent, but also attracting it as well. Pardon me. And the reason for that is explained by that story we had at the beginning about my friend the jogger. If he's much more committed to what he's doing because of that sense of purpose that he's got, that sense of what he's hoping to achieve through the exercise. So he's that much more committed to what he's doing. So he's not going to jump in the car and get a lift home. Likewise with your workers, if they're committed to your meaning, if they're committed to your value proposition, to your purpose, then they're less likely to jump ship. And that means that if they're much more engaged in their work, they're more motivated in their work, naturally they will be that will make them a much more sustainable workforce. Which is great because we can measure a sense of purpose. We can measure their commitment to the business, to the meaning, the purpose in their work through tools like Winning Temp, through our employee engagement tracking tools. And so we can then use that to give a sense of how sustainable they are. And in fact, we have clients at Winning Temp that are investment companies that actually do that. They actually use Winning Temp as a way of checking on not keeping track is probably the wrong word, but getting a sense of what the engagement of the companies is. And they highly recommend products like ours to be able to do that. The second attribute I want to look at is development, L&D, training, career development, whatever it is. We can measure how committed you are to a company is to their L&D, and Deloitte has shown that organisations with a strong sense of learning, a strong learning culture, are 92% more likely to develop novel products and processes, 52% more productive, 56% more likely to be the first to market with their products and services, and 17% more profitable than their peers. But the key takeaway from there is they're also more engaged. Their engagement and retention values are 30 to 50% higher. And the reason for that is because if employees see that you're investing in them, investing in their future, that you see a trajectory for them, then they're more likely to want to stay with the business, because for them, they can see a way forwards. They don't want to trash that. But that also inevitably makes that workforce that much more sustainable, because having a strong learning culture means that there is a future, and that means that, again, that workforce is going to be more steady for the foreseeable future. So by measuring their commitment to development, not only are we able to measure their engagement, we're also, like with purpose, able to measure their sustainability as well. I'd just like to end with some key takeaways. Sustainability gives your company competitive advantage. It also allows employee. We also see that employee engagement drives sustainability, because by having a sense of purpose, by having that vision, thinking back to my friend the jogger, having that bigger picture, is what's going to push them through the good times and the bad times, and it's going to see them be much more sustainable as a result. But the scaffolding, the framework for doing all of that, is having that culture, having that learning culture, having a sense of this is what we are, not just what we do. And by having that, by embedding it into your, if you like, your company DNA, you'll create automatically, naturally, a much more sustained and engaged workforce. Thank you very much. I now hand back to Serena. Serena, are you able to share with us, have you got any questions that have come through?
Hi again, Phil. So we've had some really interesting questions come through. And so the first one we've had is, what role does DEI play in driving sustainability?
Right, great question. Diversity. So I'm not diversity in and of itself, I think, is a bit difficult to pin down. We can argue about what is a diverse workforce, I think, for a long time. What I like to think of is the I part of that question, the inclusivity. Have you got an inclusive culture? Thinking back to what I was saying earlier about the feedback loop. If you've got that sense of inclusivity, if people feel like they belong, then you're more likely, and their opinion is valued, and they're contributing towards something, not just regardless of their background, but because of their background. Then that gives them a greater sense of participation, which is also something that we measure here at Winning Temp. It's part of the engagement, part of their engagement metrics. So as being part of that sort of culture, yes, there's all the sort of spin-offs, I guess, and innovation and that sort of thing, and you avoid groupthink, but you also get a much more sort of integrated team and a much more participative team. And yes, absolutely, that will be one of the other factors that I would say does contribute towards sustainability and engagement.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Phil. That's really insightful. And so we've had another question come in, and it asks, this person asks, do you have any examples from the clients you work with where they link sustainability and employee engagement?
Right. Okay. Good question. So There's two clients that spring to mind. One is a hotel chain, funnily enough, where they've actually got B Corp status as a result of, partly as a result of using Winning Temp, but they're all into sustainability. It's part of what they do. So the staff that they hire, they work with refugees and other people from deprived backgrounds. They work with people with special needs and incorporate them into and include them, recruit them into the business. The furniture is all recycled and upcycled. But what's important from them is they look at their engagement data in terms of three parts of their metrics, if you like. They look at their revenue, they look at their people data, and they look at their customer data. They want to see how those three combine, because that's, for them, if they've got sky high on those, then they know that they've got a sustainable business model. And sure enough, they see that if their Winning Temp data, if their engagement data is high, that also means that their customer scores are very high, and they can see a correlation between the two. And naturally, then that of course means that their revenues are going to be high as well. And they seeing that because they've got different parts of the business, some of the parts of the business have gone down this sustainable route. One of their brands is going down this sustainability route, and one of them is not, is just a regular, I say regular hotel, it's a 5-star hotel. They can compare and contrast the difference between them, and sure enough, they do see higher engagement rates with the sustainable brands, and higher other scores as well in terms of the revenue and in terms of the guest satisfaction as well. Like I kind of alluded to earlier, we also work with some investment firms that are working with the companies they invest in, and they also see they look at Winning Temp in terms of their sustainability strategy, because they want to see that, again, these businesses are in it for the long run, and part of that is not just carbon footprint and that sort of thing, but also their people as well.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. So those are some really good examples of the link between sustainability and employee engagement. And so another question has come in, and this person asks, how does having sustainability affect other HR metrics like staff turnover?
Right. So yeah, if you've got your team that they're highly engaged, if they're invested in their work, you're going to see an uptick in, or an uptick in motivation. You should see, as I said earlier, an increase in productivity, but you are going to see a decline in attrition, in staff turnover. Simply put, if they're invested in their work, they're focusing on that rather than looking over their shoulder as to what else they can be doing. But all of that links to sustainability, as we were saying later on in the presentation, because if they're looking for a company that is more sustainable, if sustainability is part of their value set, then obviously they're going to look for that in their current employer, and if they see that in their current employer, then they're more likely to stay. So I think there are close links with low turnover, sickness absence as well. We see a noticeable difference in a low decline in sickness absence when you have a high level of engagement, and of course stress as well. I think it was 26% reduction in stress levels we've seen through the clients that we work with when we measure that in their staff. So yes, those are sort of key metrics that we do see as a result of having a good engagement strategy, but also the knock-on effects of their sustainability as well.
Mm-hmm. That's really interesting to hear that link between stress and employee staff turnover as well. But our final question that we've had come through is, what are some effective strategies for communicating sustainability initiatives to employees and fostering their active participation?
Right. Good question. So communication is the key, right? There's no point having this on a piece of paper that's sort of stuck up somewhere on the staff canteen. We need to walk the walk as well, and communicating that down. The key to that is got to be your managers, because it's them, the leaders of the business, that are responsible for upholding the company culture. As if your employees can see that the senior leadership team, and then by the next level down, the management team, are acting in that way, are seeing it, are looking for opportunities to embed this into the team culture, then they're going to naturally follow suit. If they don't, then that's their perception, is what their immediate manager, what their line manager, or their senior leadership do. If they don't see that, then they're just going to see a disconnect and more likely to want to move. So it's about not just having, as I say, having the managers in place to do it, but also let me stop sharing my screen. Also having the having that culture, having that what I refer to as like the scaffolding, if you like, so that they can see so that the managers have a framework within which to work with, so they know clearly what the values are, they know clearly what's expected of them in terms of embodying, manifesting, for lack of a better word, the culture and the sustainability, how the sustainability fits into that culture. If you can get that right, then you've got to sure start on that. Needless to say, it's not always easy to do it, especially when you've got a mobile workforce, a remote workforce, or if you've got quite a large workforce. But it's about trickling it down and making sure that there's some sort of consistency, and also having some ownership of it as well, making sure that there's somebody in the business, whether it's in HR, whether it's somebody in the senior leadership team. Some companies I work with, it's the finance team that take responsibility for it. Having somebody involved that's going to champion it is absolutely has got to be there, is absolutely critical. In some cases, I've even seen it that the marketing team get involved, because they're involved in communication. So they're involved in making sure that what the company puts out to the outside world is represented by what's in the business. There's no point having sort of lots of pretty pictures on your website if that's not what goes on in the business. So in a sense, they're responsible for making sure that the projections, that the communications they put out are representative of what's going on in the business itself. So if there's a disconnect between those two, then that makes them look a bit that sort of creates a disconnect with what they're doing. So it could even be seen to be the role of marketing, to have a role of marketing in that, but in a sort of hands-on role, not just in a sort of, oh well, let's go off and plant some trees or something like that.
Mm-hmm. That makes complete sense, and thanks very much for sharing that insight, Phil. And that's all the questions that we've had for today. So that brings us to the end of the session. I'd just like to thank everybody for watching and for sending in your questions, and thank you to Phil for today's insightful session.
Pleasure.
That leaves us with enough time to show a short clip of a demo of Winning Temp. Thank you to everyone for watching today, and hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to Winning Temp. Winning Temp is an AI-driven platform that helps companies engage their employees at a whole new level. Here's how it works. Our platform uses machine learning to tailor-make surveys for employees. These are sent out weekly or however often you'd like. The questions are based on research about the real drivers of motivation and performance. The surveys are quick too. They take employees less than 10 seconds to answer, and they can leave anonymous comments if they like. This data creates what we call temperature. In one quick scroll, you can understand how employees are feeling in real time, across the areas that matter most according to science, plus any other areas you would like to gather data on. Your managers get their own dashboards, where they can see the full picture of what's happening within their own teams, and dig into the first-hand feedback. If they're short on time, they can simply go to Insights to see the most important developments to be aware of, like what strength their team is showing, what the current challenges are, and if there are urgent problems that need attention. All this information can be easily pulled up in a report. Managers can then use this data as a starting point for important conversations and easier decision-making. As a leader, you can consult the heat map to check in on progress across your whole organization and know exactly where to step in to offer support. Don't leave anything to hindsight. Get the full picture of employee experience in real time and start taking action on what matters most with Winning Temp.